Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, your 20-minute insight into the conversations shaping the future of the accounting profession. I'm Arianna Campbell, shareholder and Chief Operating Officer, and I'm joined by Amanda Wilkie, consultant at Boomer Consulting. We recently facilitated the Process Circle meeting, and today we're going to be breaking down the most impactful conversations. We're going to be talking all about what you need to know and why it matters. But Amanda, I think before we jump into just some of the insights from the meeting, I think it's helpful to just talk a little bit about the Process Circle and give some context around that community.
Well, the Process Circle is really for change agents within their organization. We call it the Process Circle, but really it includes not only things like process management, but project management and change management as well. Because you really need a process for change and you need a process for project management. So the individuals in this circle are a little unique compared to our other circles. The technology circles clearly defined and targeted for our technology professionals within the profession. Your CIO circle, your managing partner circle, you kind of know who's going to be in there. But we have people throughout the firm that are focused on things like project management and change management and process management. They touch every place in the firm. So it is a little unique because we may have a role of project manager sitting next to a manager of innovation, sitting next to a director of tax operations. Again, it's unique because it's not really focused on your title, but more of the role. And that is the role of change agent in the firms.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to explain it. And I think it's been interesting how, as we've seen the Process Circle evolve over the years, because I think we're coming up on 10 years that we've had the Process Circle, how those roles have continued to evolve. And so firms really seeing a need for a focus on the things that you mentioned, really setting aside a role for process management, for project management, for directors of change. And we're also seeing that that's happening more as a specific role as to where before it used to be part of people's role. So maybe you saw someone who was in the role of COO and part of their role was change. Well, now we have the COOs who are in the, operations circle, and they're still dealing with elements of change. But the firm now has a specific role, and that person has been able to come into the Process Circle and really meet with their peers who are focusing on those same kind of opportunities across the firm. And so I think that it's really positive to see firms investing in these roles and understanding the importance of them, but also that people within these roles have a community where they can come and talk about how they're moving change forward in their firms using frameworks around process improvement and project management, because they often find that they're kind of in a role of the only within the firm. So having a peer group can be really beneficial.
And that's a good point, Arianna, because we even had a conversation at the end of day 2 about the evolution of some of these roles. Many times project management and process management started as roles within IT. And one member even said they started in IT and they kept getting pulled back into IT projects. So even though they were focused on process improvement for the firm, because they sat in IT, they kept being pulled away from focusing on firm initiatives. And I think that's one reason we're seeing that evolution and bringing these roles out of the service lines or out of the operational units that they've been in, and they're getting the focus, they're getting the support, and they're getting the authority to make change throughout the firm.
Yes, I agree. And I think that it, especially from what we're hearing in the group, to have others that you can talk to, because in many cases, firms have these roles, but maybe they haven't identified them as the process leaders, and having a place for people who are in those roles to come and talk and share best practices and what they're seeing and what they're moving forward in their firm is really beneficial. I know that I learn multiple things every time we meet with the group, and really enjoy the conversations that they have.
I do as well.
So, speaking of the conversations from the past meeting, from your perspective, what was the most engaging or lively discussion that the members had?
Yeah. It had to be our circle exchange, Arianna. So the circle exchange is a session that we do where we invite members to present. I say present loosely because you don't have to have a PowerPoint presentation. It's more of a show and tell. But we ask them to present something that's happening in their firm, or it may not even be something that's done yet, something that is in progress that they feel is innovative, or something that they feel is making an impact on their firm. It can be small or it can be big. And sometimes the small things end up having the largest impact. But Arianna, we had a firm that shared they made an update to their practice management solution. And so if you go in to put time on a client that has not been paying their bill, there's actually a visual that basically says, in no uncertain terms, stop doing work, stop billing work to this client. They have not paid us. And I could see a couple of light bulbs go off in the room. It seems so easy. Like, you expect people to know whether or not their clients are paying their bills in a timely manner. But we don't always know that. And we get caught up in doing the work. We like helping the client. They've been a client for a long time. They're a good client. Whatever the rationalization, we can find it to continue to do that work. But having that visual has actually saved this firm time and money, because it changes the conversation. Instead of getting the work done, they can start talking to the client about what is holding them back from paying for the work that has already been done.
And I thought it was really interesting, that conversation from both a process and a change perspective, because there was the one piece that the firm walked through of what was the process for actually making that happen. And then what's the process that actually flows through, in real time, to cause that, trigger within the system to change it. But then also the change management with it, because they also talked about how it was for services across the board, not just in one specific area. And so the change piece becomes really important for having people understand internally, and then being able to have the right conversations externally. So I thought that was a great discussion. And even if members weren't going to move forward with that exact same solution, it started getting them thinking from a process side, what could be done within their firms to, really help from that perspective.
And that's just one example of the great ideas that were shared at the process circle, that people were taking notes and they're like, I have to take this back to my firm.
Yes. And another one that I'd add that I think was a really robust discussion was a member shared and actually had a presentation on their process for strategic planning. And it was interesting how it tied back to the trends that we had shared as well, really about the importance of having, the strategic decisions that are being made in the firm tie back to the vision, and really thinking through and being thoughtful about how we're putting those strategies together, and having not only a strategic plan for the firm, but also thinking about for maybe different service lines, or maybe different like key initiative areas, like a strategic plan for AI. And so having it shared from the members' perspective, I think also got people thinking, whether they, had been doing strategic planning and had a process for it or not, what were some more robust implications or applications? And then also, how do you manage the change around moving strategic initiatives forward after you've gone through the process of strategic planning? So I think that was a great one as well. So as you think about all of the conversations that were had, what do you think were some of the biggest ahas of the circle meeting? What kind of key insights or breakthroughs did you think that members had?
I think one thing that stood out to me, Arianna, was over and over again, we heard that there is a need for more change management. And not all firms really understand what that means. And that's not just, hey, we're sending out emails that changes are happening, or we're providing training so that people can make it through this change. Firms are starting to realize that there is so much change going on and it is happening so quickly. We do not have the time to slow down. And it's not even about really having a competitive advantage. It's about having that competitive advantage, but it's about getting the work done. And it's about getting the work done and moving the firm forward without killing the individuals that work for the firm, without it having a negative impact on the individuals. And that is a key takeaway about change management. Organizations don't change, Arianna. We say this over and over all the time. Organizations don't change. It's the individuals that change. And I think more and more firms are starting to realize that to really support their people, they need more change management. So we need to be having conversations about change management, about how we're going to build desire for changes, how we're going to build awareness for changes, how we're going to successfully execute this change and reinforce that change on the individual level, because that's where change management really makes an impact, is on the individuals. And as you're making positive impact on the individuals, then you're making a positive impact on the organization as a whole.
Yes, and I think another aha that tied into that was that change management isn't just dependent on firm size, and that everyone within the room, within their roles, we have also something unique about this circle is the wide range of firm sizes. So all the way from 25 FTE up to several thousand FTE, and everyone within their roles of navigating change really was keyed in on the individual part of change. I think that firms have gotten very good at creating what is the organizational plan going to be? What's the timeline for when the change is going to happen? What do we need to roll out? Those different pieces. But these change agents that meet within this community are really focused on that individual piece. And there's things to be learned from each other, no matter what the firm size. Because in many cases, change is just happening one individual at a time, right? And so no matter what size your firm, that is the journey that you're taking to work towards getting more adoption and getting more people on board so that you can really have change that sticks. So as you think about all of the conversations that were had, we met for a day and a half. What do you think that firms are going to be doing differently after this meeting? Because we love the magic that happens during the meeting, but it's really more magical when they can take things back to their firm that they're able to put into place and put into action. So what do you think they're going to be doing differently? What are they taking back?
This is an easy question to answer, because at the end of our time together, we always ask the firms, what are they taking back? We allow them to share what they're taking back to their firm, why, maybe who they want to share it with, again, why they think it's important. And I think this is great because we have so much great conversation, so much great information that sometimes it's great in that moment, and then we get back to the day-to-day, we get back to the firm, and we completely forget about some of the tools or the conversations that we wanted to share with people around us. So we always have that conversation at the end of our time together that kind of gives us a commitment to take things back. And during that conversation, the weighted matrix for software selection was brought up a few times. And this came from a session that we had on day one, where we talked about how to evaluate software and make sure that it fits the needs of the firm. So we discussed how you start with your big rocks, what's really important for the application, what's nice to have, and then what are some bells and whistles that you can, that you might want to see. And then how to assign that kind of a weight. And with that weighted matrix of requirements, you can then use that tool to evaluate the solutions that you're looking at, you can actually use it during demos. And again, it's weighted, so it allows you to give it a score, if you will, a score, so that it's not subjective. You're not just like, oh, that seemed really cool, or I really liked the way that this one looked or what this one did. So it allows you to be much more organized in your process for not only evaluating the solutions, but ultimately picking the one that is the best for your organization. So we had multiple firms that are taking that back, and I think they'll be using it this summer as they are looking at some new software.
And I think that it's an interesting part of the conversation in people remembering to also include their existing software if they already have something in place in the conversation as well. It's not just about evaluating new software, it's about understanding what your current software is doing as well, because starting there, whether you're deciding to change or not, gives you a lot of insights too. And so I thought that that was an interesting perspective. So what I heard from the meeting also was just an ton of opportunity to continue to really champion the change leadership within the firm, with the focus on frameworks around process improvement, change management, project management. And one thing that I think the members always find is that they get more confidence within their roles because they're able to, again, learn and hear from their peers, but also really create that connection with other people who are doing a lot of the same things and trying to move similar initiatives forward. So it creates a place of confidence because you know that there are others who are doing the same thing that you are. You're seeing what successes that they're having. You're able to share your successes and your challenges and figure out different ways to approach things. Because really, one thing that we come back to a lot in this circle is that it's all about continuous improvement. When it comes to change and process and project management, we are never done. And so how can we always look at ways to continue doing things better than we have done them in the past and to make sure that perfection isn't getting in the way of progress? So it was great taking time to kind of review some of the highlights from the meeting. To all of our listeners, thank you so much for listening. These conversations are just a preview of the collaboration happening in the Boomer Circles, where firms come together to learn, share, and drive real progress. For more insights like these, subscribe to the Boomer Bulletin. Thank you so much for joining us.